May God bless your day and your entire week as we embark on this journey together.
Yes, absolutely.
So imagine holding an all-access VIP pass, like a pass that you firmly believe makes you just completely invincible,
Right.
only to find out, that you're actually standing in the most precarious, dangerous position of your entire life.
It's a terrifying thought, honestly.
It really is. And today we are doing a deep dive into a 2,000-year-old letter that exposes that exact psychological trap. Because it's a trap that is astonishingly easy to fall into, even right now.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
On the desk in front of us today, we have some extensive historical, archaeological, and theological footnotes. We're pulling these from the Holman and NAA study Bibles, and we're zeroing in on just one chapter for this deep dive.
Just the one, yeah, 1 Corinthians chapter 10.
Exactly, 1 Corinthians 10.
And, these study notes serve as our blueprint, really, to reconstruct the ancient world. They help us understand that while this text was sent to this bustling, highly cosmopolitan Greek city centuries ago,
Right.
the core friction that it addresses is just wildly relevant to you and me today.
It really is.
Yeah, the author, the Apostle Paul, he's basically tearing into the tension between our individual personal freedoms, our responsibilities to the people around us, and, well, that subtle arrogance that convinces us we're somehow immune to failure.
Yeah, that I've got this mentality.
Exactly.
So to really grasp the mindset of these ancient Corinthians, we actually have to look at the historical cautionary tale that Paul uses to, disrupt their complacency.
Which is such a brilliant rhetorical move on his part.
It is, because he bypasses their current behavior in Greece entirely at first. He doesn't even start there.
Nope.
Instead, he drags their attention way back in time to the ancient Israelites during the Exodus. He really wants to establish this baseline of, what happens when massive privilege meets zero discipline.
Yeah, and he paints this incredibly vivid picture of a people who experienced just undeniable, earth-shattering miracles.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he reminds the readers that the Israelites were quite literally guided through a wasteland by a supernatural pillar of cloud.
Right, just following a cloud.
Right, and they walked through the Red Sea on dry ground, which Paul characterizes as this massive collective baptism.
Which is a huge connection to make for his readers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they didn't just survive out there, they were miraculously sustained. Paul refers to their daily provisions as spiritual food and drink.
The manna.
Yeah, the manna falling from the sky and, of course, the water flowing out of a rock in the middle of the desert.
And speaking of that rock, the study notes highlight this fascinating cultural detail about it. It's something that fundamentally changes how you read this whole passage.
It really does. It completely reframes the narrative.
So what's the deal with the rock?
Well, during the first century, there was this widespread rabbinic legend circulating in Jewish culture.
Okay.
And this tradition suggested that the rock Moses struck for water wasn't just, a stationary geological feature that they left behind at the campsite.
Right, because how do you get water the next day?
Exactly. So the legend claimed that a literal physical rock actually rolled along behind the Israelites.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. It just followed the massive crowd through the desert to continuously provide a mobile water source.
Like a rolling, water-producing rock tailing a couple million people through a wasteland.
That's the legend. Yeah.
I mean, that is quite the visual. Just a boulder tumbling along behind them.
It is. But Paul takes that really well-known cultural myth and he just flips it on its head.
How so?
He corrects the legend by revealing the deeper theological reality. He tells the Corinthians that, yes, there was an active, constant spiritual presence following the Israelites, sustaining them, and providing that life-giving water.
But it wasn't a rock.
Right. It wasn't a magic physical rock.
Right.
That spiritual rock, he writes, was actually Christ himself, present and active even back then in the wilderness.
Wow. See, having that level of divine access makes the next part of the history incredibly jarring, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Because you have a society experiencing the cloud, the parted sea, the miraculous food, and the actual presence of Christ sustaining them. Yeah. And yet, the story takes a catastrophic turn. God was not pleased with most of them, and an entire generation was just struck down in the wilderness. They never even saw the promised land.
We didn't.
And I just have to wonder, how does that even happen mechanically?
Yeah.
You don't just wake up one day and abandon the God who physically parted an ocean for you.
No, you don't. It happens through the slow, quiet creep of privilege.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, the psychological mechanism at play here is just fascinating. The Israelites began to assume that because they had experienced all these initial spectacular blessings, their status was just permanently secured.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they mistook their initial deliverance for, like, a guarantee of future immunity. They believed their past spiritual experiences meant they could just live however they wanted in the present.
Without any consequences.
Oh, exactly.
It makes me think of holding a VIP all-access pass to an incredibly elite world-class gym.
Okay, right.
Like, you buy the most expensive membership, you wear the branded gear, you scan your shiny card at the front desk every single day.
You're part of the club.
Right. You feel like you are the club.
Yeah.
But if you assume that merely holding the VIP pass somehow magically makes you healthy, while you completely ignore the actual discipline of working out, you're going to fail.
Oh, absolutely. You'll just be standing there.
Yeah, standing in the middle of a $1 million facility, surrounded by state-of-the-art equipment, and you're completely out of shape and unwell.
That is a perfect analogy.
The Israelites had the ultimate spiritual VIP pass, but they entirely abandoned the daily discipline of obedience.
And that visual perfectly captures the delusion Paul is trying to shatter here.
Yeah.
Because having access does not replace the necessity of discipline.
Right.
Paul is leveraging this history to warn the Corinthians that, participating in the rituals of the faith like baptism or communion, it doesn't act as some sort of magical force field.
That doesn't make you immune.
No, it doesn't make you immune to moral failure.
Yeah.
You can have all the right theology and all the right sacraments and still destroy your life if you become complacent.
Which means we really need to look at how that complacency actually manifested. Because looking at the study notes, the failures of that wilderness generation weren't just like minor missteps.
No, the implosion was total.
Yeah, what exactly were they doing?
Well, Paul outlines their specific downfalls. He says they spiraled into severe idolatry, they constantly grumbled and rebelled against the very provisions God was giving them, and they engaged in rampant immorality.
And the historical estimate provided in the notes here is just staggering to comprehend.
It really is.
At one point, 23,000 people fell in a single day as a direct result of these choices.
Yeah, 23,000.
23,000 people losing their lives in a single 24-hour period. That is a heavy reality check.
Extremely heavy.
And it sets up the core defining warning of this entire section of the text. Paul writes, "Let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall."
Yes.
I mean, it is a massive red flag against the danger of looking at someone else's catastrophic failure and thinking, I am way too smart for that. That would never happen to me.
Which is exactly what the Corinthians were doing. They were essentially functioning on pure intellectual arrogance.
Because they felt they had arrived.
Right. They felt they had achieved this level of spiritual enlightenment where they could handle anything. And because they felt so secure, they were willingly walking into these highly compromising situations.
Assuming their advanced knowledge would just protect them.
Exactly. But Paul cuts through that arrogance. He basically says the exact moment you believe you are too strong to fall is the moment you are in the greatest possible danger.
I have to push back on this, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Because just reading through these notes, the implications feel incredibly intimidating. I mean, if a generation of people who literally watched water stand up like a wall, who ate food that physically materialized on the ground every morning, if they couldn't handle their own internal darkness and ended up falling,
Right.
how are ordinary people today supposed to survive? It just sounds like a doomed mission from the start. Are we all just waiting for the inevitable collapse?
And you know what? That sense of impending doom is exactly the anxiety Paul anticipates from them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he knows that this severe warning could lead to absolute despair.
Right.
So he immediately follows it with one of the most profound reassurances in the entire ancient text.
Okay, what does he say?
He tells his readers, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man."
Meaning, you aren't a unique case.
Right.
Your struggles aren't some unprecedented mutation of human weakness.
Precisely the point.
Yeah.
Whatever pull you feel, whatever darkness you're wrestling with, it is a shared, universal human experience.
That does take some of the pressure off.
It does. But he doesn't just leave them with solidarity, He shifts the focus entirely away from human fragility, and he places it on the character of God.
How so?
He writes that God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. Furthermore, with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it.
The escape hatch.
The escape hatch. And the study notes emphasize a really beautiful theological concept here. Believers are never, ever entirely trapped.
Even when it feels like it.
Even when it feels suffocating. In every single situation, no matter how intense the pressure feels, there's always a moral alternative to destructive behavior. There's always an escape hatch.
Okay, but if they always have an escape hatch, why were the Corinthians still playing with fire?
Well.
Because the answer really comes down to their social calendars, doesn't it? Moving from internal struggles to outward behavior, the texts zero in on the exact scenario where these people were pushing the boundaries.
The ancient dinner parties.
Exactly, the dinner parties.
The cultural context from the archaeological notes is just vital here. Because in the ancient Greco-Roman world, social life, business networking, local politics, it all heavily revolved around lavish feasts.
Right.
And these feasts were almost exclusively held in pagan temples, dedicated to various local gods.
So the Corinthians, armed with their arrogant sense of spiritual security, they were trying to live in both worlds simultaneously.
That's exactly it. They were participating in the Christian Lord's Supper on one hand, and then turning around and attending these massive ritual feasts dedicated to pagan idols on the other.
I mean, their logic is actually somewhat understandable from a modern perspective, I think.
How do you mean?
Well, they reasoned, we know these Greek and Roman gods are just myths. The statues are literally just pieces of carved wood and polished stone.
Right.
Therefore, the idol is fake. And if the idol is fake, eating a meal in its temple means absolutely nothing. We are just enjoying a good steak and networking with the local merchants.
And that was the exact rationale driving their behavior. And the crazy thing is, Paul actually agrees with the first half of their premise.
That the idol is fake.
Yeah. He says a physical statue made of wood or stone is fundamentally powerless. It is nothing.
Okay.
But the study notes reveal a deeply unsettling reality that Paul exposes to shatter their complacency. He explains that while the physical materials of the idol are harmless, there are active, malevolent, demonic forces operating behind these systems of false worship.
Honestly, I genuinely struggle to wrap my head around that.
It's a tough concept for the modern mind.
It is, because when modern minds hear the word demons, we immediately picture, like, cheap horror movies or medieval superstitions.
Right, the pitchforks and horns.
Yeah. So what did that actually mean for a first-century person walking into a temple?
It meant that South's religions and systemic idolatry were not merely the products of an overactive human imagination. Paul is asserting that real, dark, spiritual entities manipulate these systems to draw human beings away from the truth. Yeah, the entire apparatus of idol worship is a Trojan horse. Therefore, Paul draws an absolute, non-negotiable line in the sand.
Which is
He states that participating in those specific ritual feasts and eating the meat actively being sacrificed means you're having fellowship with demons. You're communing with the spiritual forces hiding behind the statues.
It's like trying to hold a seat of honor at a beautiful wedding banquet, celebrating the bride and groom, and then sneaking out the back door to go dine with a syndicate of people who are actively plotting to murder the groom.
Oh, man. Yes.
You cannot claim loyalty to the marriage while breaking bread with its sworn enemies. And the text makes it explicitly clear you cannot drink from the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons.
Right.
The two are mutual exclusive realities.
And Paul uses this rhetorical question to really drive the reality check home. He asks, shall we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? He is challenging their delusion of invincibility. You cannot play games with malevolent spiritual forces and expect your divine VIP pass to just insulate you from the devastation that will inevitably follow.
Okay. So temple feasts are completely off the table.
Complete.
The ruling is zero tolerance.
Zero.
But logically, if the temple is a spiritual ground zero, how do these people eat?
Right, practically speaking.
Yeah. Does everyday life in this city just become an absolute minefield? Like, if I'm a Corinthian living downtown and I can't touch the temple meat, what on earth happens when I need to go to the public grocery store?
Well, this is where the archaeological insights from the sources are just brilliant.
Okay, what did they find?
So excavations in the ancient city of Corinth have uncovered the agora.
The agora, right, the marketplace.
Yeah, the sprawling central marketplace of the city. And the findings perfectly align with the scenario Paul is addressing in the letter.
How so? Like, what was the dynamic of the agora?
It functioned as the economic beating heart of the city. The archaeological evidence shows that leftover meat from the massive idol sacrifices up in the temples was routinely transported down into the agora.
To be sold.
Exactly. To be sold to the general public for everyday consumption. And these weren't just small stalls. The excavations revealed sophisticated meat shops.
Really?
Yeah, they utilized cold running water systems to keep the highly perishable foods fresh.
Oh, wow. That's advanced.
It was a massive, everyday commercial operation, deeply intertwined with the temple complex.
So the very same piece of meat that was offered in a demonic ritual an hour ago is now sitting in the butcher's window downtown.
Yep, right next to the other cuts.
It is so easy to see why a conscientious person would be absolutely paralyzed by fear. You'd be terrified to buy anything lest you accidentally participate in something dark.
Right, you would naturally assume Paul's instruction would be total strict avoidance, like go vegan or raise your own livestock.
Right.
But his instruction is stunningly practical and completely unexpected.
What does he say?
He tells them, eat whatever is sold in the meat market, without raising any question on the ground of conscience.
Wait, really? He tells them to just buy it and eat it.
Yes.
Don't even investigate it.
Don't ask a single question. And he quotes from the Psalms to explain the mechanics of why this is permissible. He says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof.
Okay, I see.
Paul's logic is that the meat itself isn't biologically cursed or inherently evil. The demonic fellowship occurred during the active temple ritual.
Got it.
Once that meat leaves the temple precinct and enters the public commercial marketplace, it ceases to be a ritual object.
It's just a steak.
It is just a steak. It's
What?
part of God's creation. So buy it, take it home, enjoy it, and do not burden your conscience by interrogating the butcher about its origins.
I mean, that is an incredibly freeing framework.
It really is.
And he applies that same standard to private dinner parties, doesn't he?
He does. He says if an unbelieving neighbor invites you over to their house for dinner and you want to go, you should go.
Yeah.
Sit down and eat whatever is put in front of you. Do not sit at the table aggressively cross-examining your host about which market stall they bought the roast from.
Right. Where did you get this?
Yeah, don't do that. Eat the meal with gratitude and enjoy the relationship.
I just love the nuance here because it completely flips our modern cultural obsession with personal rights completely upside down.
Oh, totally.
Today, the default setting for almost everyone is, what am I legally allowed to do? What are my rights?
Which is exactly what the Corinthians were asking.
Right. They wanted to know if they had the right to eat the meat. But Paul introduces a profound paradigm shift. He writes, all things are lawful, but not all things edify.
To build up.
Yes, to edify means to build up. He forces the focus entirely away from what am I allowed to do and redirects it to how does my specific action affect the human being sitting right next to me.
And that shift in perspective, from self-interest to community care, it introduces the single major exception Paul provides in this entire framework.
Right. There is a specific scenario where you are required to stop eating.
Yes.
The exception driven entirely by love.
Exactly. So let's imagine you're at that neighbor's dinner party. You're enjoying the food, entirely free in your conscience.
Right.
But then someone else at the table speaks up. Now, it might be a fellow believer who has a deeply traumatic past involving paganism.
Right.
Or perhaps it's a skeptical non-believer who is watching you closely to test the integrity of your convictions.
Sure.
And that person points to the dish and says out loud, hey, just so you know, that meat was offered in sacrifice to an idol.
The moment those words are spoken, the entire dynamic of the room changes.
Completely. Paul instructs that in that specific moment, you must set your fork down and stop eating.
But the mechanism of why you stop is the most fascinating part, I think.
Oh, for sure. Because you aren't stopping because the meat suddenly became demonically infected by them speaking.
Right, the meat didn't change.
And you aren't stopping to protect your own conscience because your conscience is already clear. You stop entirely to protect the conscience of the other person.
Because if you confidently chew the meat after they specifically flagged it as a pagan sacrifice, the fragile person watching you might internalize the wrong message.
Yeah.
They might think, oh, participating in idol worship is actually perfectly fine, and they get dragged back into a lifestyle that destroyed them in the past.
Right. Or the skeptic looks at you and concludes, these people don't actually stand for anything. They are completely hypocritical.
Yeah. So you are asked to sacrifice your perfectly legitimate legal freedom to eat the meal in order to protect the spiritual and psychological well-being of the person watching you.
You willingly restrict your own rights because you love them more than you love your freedom.
See, this completely changes how I view my own social spaces today. Because most of us aren't navigating ancient meat markets, obviously.
No, thankfully not.
But the principle translates perfectly. If I have the legal right to watch a gritty, intense movie or to post a controversial, heavy joke on social media, it isn't inherently evil for me to do so. But if I am sitting in a room with a friend who I know carries deep sensitivities or past trauma regarding that exact subject, I have a choice to make.
You possess the right to proceed with your entertainment?
I do, but the text is challenging me to actively choose to abstain. I put the remote down or I delete the draft of the post.
Yeah.
Not because watching the movie is suddenly a sin for me, but because I realize that exercising my freedom in that specific moment would actively harm someone I care about.
Exactly.
I am choosing to limit my freedom out of pure love for my community. It makes freedom a tool for service rather than, a weapon of selfishness.
Which brings us to the ultimate sweeping conclusion Paul is driving toward here. After navigating all these complex ethical layers, he summarizes the entire framework with one incredible directive.
Which is?
He says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God.
Right.
And the entire context of the chapter dictates that you glorify God by actively seeking the good of others, that they may be saved and built up.
It really is a remarkable journey we've taken through these sources today. I mean, we started way back in the dust of the Exodus with the ancient Israelites.
We did.
Walking through the parted waters of the Red Sea, experiencing miraculous daily provision, and yet completely falling apart due to the trap of overconfidence and a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
And then we watch the Corinthians try to arrogantly juggle the cup of the Lord with the dark realities of demonic fellowship.
Learning that true spiritual safety isn't found in holding a VIP pass.
No, it's not. It's found in a daily reliance on the faithful escape routes God provides.
And then, we followed the historical trail right down into the noisy, bustling Corinthian meat markets and dinner parties.
We did. We discovered that true freedom isn't about fiercely maximizing our own personal rights or winning theological debates.
No, it's about leveraging the freedoms we possess to build up our community.
Exactly. To fiercely protect the vulnerable among us and to reflect the generous character of God in how we treat the people sitting at our tables.
That's the core of it.
Which leaves us with a deeply provocative thought for you to carry with you as you go about your week.
Yeah.
Building on the profound shift we've uncovered in these study notes, in our highly individualized, radically self-centric modern world, how completely would our relationships change? How would our workplaces and homes transform if we simply stopped constantly asking, what are my rights? And finally started asking, what does my community actually need from me to thrive?
It alters the entire landscape of how we navigate the world, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It takes us from being greedy consumers of our own personal freedom to becoming active architects of a healthier, more resilient community.
It really does. It reminds us that holding the ultimate access pass doesn't mean we just get to sit comfortably in the lobby. It means we use our strength to help others carry the weight.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack these incredible historical and theological sources today. God bless us all, the listeners.